Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our last Impact and Coffee of July, this July 20th. I'm Armand Nelson. I'm the program manager at Pivotal, New Mexico, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Michael. Good morning, Michael. How are you doing? How was your weekend?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Robert. It's good to be here. Yeah, so I'm Michael Green, the other co-host for today's show, and I'm a program coordinator for the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. So yeah, it's great to be here. So thank you for joining us for Impact and Coffee. Impact and Coffee is an open, welcoming conversation to exchange stories and ideas, to foster innovation, to strengthen the nonprofit sector, and to build community. Usually we do this, non-pandemic times. We've been at the Albuquerque Community Foundation, where we've been able to join together as a group, and we've been able to enjoy coffee there for Lily Marie's Coffee. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to get back to the in-person stuff as well. But we've been doing the Zoom thing for, I don't know, a year, like 18 months or so. So it's kind of adjusted to it, and we're comfortable with it. But yeah, so thank you all for joining us today. So Robert, today is a Gratitude Tuesday. I can see you thinking, trying to figure out what you're grateful for. So if you could share something that you're grateful for with us, Robert, that would be great. Then also for the people in the audience, feel free to introduce yourselves with your contact information, where you work, and something that you're grateful for in the chat. So that way we can kind of know who's in the audience and what great things are happening these days.
Thanks, Michael. I'm grateful for all of our speakers today, but I'm really grateful for a long weekend. So I took Friday and Monday off from work. It was really great to just relax and also stay offline on social media. So that was really that. Yeah, I recommend getting off social media when you can, because it's a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm grateful for. But for all of our audience members today and for all of our panelists, please share introduce yourselves to the group by laying your name in the chat, your pronouns, your organization, if you have one. And share what you're grateful for on this Gratitude Tuesday. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience today, so good to see y'all. And Michael, do we have any announcements we want to make before we get going?
So yeah, we have this wonderful grant called Next Gen In. Next Gen In is a way I gotta figure out how to say this. So it's basically a grant that we give out to people who are 25 years old or younger, who work in a nonprofit organization, who are trying to build capacity within that organization. So it's a wonderful way that we can kind of give money to youth who are working in the nonprofit sector, some of our younger colleagues. So it's a way that they can get some extra funding to help kind of build their goals and missions and stuff. And so I'll put the link for that in the chat, so then that way, if you know of anybody in your organization who might be interested in that, you can have access to that. Let's see, do you have anything else to add this morning, Robert?
No, I think we're good. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. So we're going to just pass it to our very first presenter. His name is Peter Sanchez. I think you've joined us before when we were in person, Peter, but this is the first time you all have presented here at Impact and Coffee. So welcome and thanks for joining us. And we'll spotlight you in here in just a moment.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And good morning to everybody. Like was said, my name is Peter Sanchez. I'm the CEO of the Atrisco companies. And the Atrisco companies are a collection of 6 companies, 5 of which are nonprofit. And what I wanted to do today is I'll give a little background on some of our nonprofit companies, but also wanted to spend some time talking about the operations and the approach that we take to our nonprofits to help them become more sustainable and really ultimately help them become broader and greater with their social impact in their mission. So the Atrisco companies is a company that's been around for quite a while because it's an evolution away from the Atrisco land grant, which happened about 16 years ago when we sold the land grant. Today, I want to talk about a few companies within the Atrisco companies. Ariana, if you want to move forward. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's 4 of the entities I want to highlight this morning. The first is El Campo Santo. It's a company that we had before. when we were a prior organization. But today we've developed this nonprofit company, which is a 501c13, into a much bigger business or service for our community. What it does is it provides low-cost burial services to the community, which is a really important thing because the cost of funerals today has gone quite high, and it is at times very unaffordable and inaccessible to families when they're hit with a devastating moment in their family. So we provide a low-cost alternative, and it's a business that is, like I said, a 501c13. The next business I wanted to point out a little bit about is a company that we brought into the Atrisco companies in 2009, the Rio Grande Educational Collaborative. RGEC, the Rio Grande Education Collaborative, is an academic-based before and after school program. A very successful company, nonprofit company within our organization. It's a 501c3. What it does is it provides academic support for children in public and charter schools. You can contrast it to, let's say, a campfire or a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club, which are recreational. Ours is fun because if not, the kids won't come, but it's academic based. We do homework help, we do tutoring, and we do lesson plans tied to Common Core after school. And the whole approach here is with our low educational outcomes in our state, we are trying to be a supplement to children in the elementary school space to ensure that their reading and math levels are at grade level or above, which is a key driver into the child's success in school throughout their career in K through 12. Okay. The next entity I'd like to talk a little bit about is also a nonprofit company. It's been in our community for 30 years. It's called Mariachi Spectacular. You may know this company because of concerts that you've seen promoted in our community, but it is actually an education company too, music education in the genre of mariachi. And what we have here is an organization that is dedicated to preserving this cultural music form by offering concerts and conferences throughout the year to teach the music from one generation to the next. And how we do that is we literally have the ability to bring in some of the master musicians in this art form, in this music genre, and bring them to Albuquerque as instructors. I always tell people it's sort of the equivalent, because it's a rather humble music genre. It's the equivalent of getting Mick Jagger and Keith Richards to come and teach vocals and guitar. That's what we've got going on here with Mariachi Spectacular because of the level of talent that we're able to bring here to Albuquerque. And people come from all around the country to our concerts and conferences. And then the last company I wanted to highlight is our newest company, Fathers Building Futures. We brought this company into the Atrisco company fold right before the pandemic set in, so in 2020. And what Fathers Building Futures does, and you may know of them, they've been around our community about 8 years. They help formerly incarcerated individuals who have been released from prison reintegrate into society by focusing on a few very critical areas to help stabilize the life of the former incarcerated individual. These clients of ours, our job is to help them restore their family relationships and make sure that they remain in good standing with their probationary considerations, and then most importantly, help them develop a skill set, a certified skill set, like in the spaces of managing heavy machinery, becoming an electrician, a plumber, things of that nature, so that they can obtain a higher skilled, higher paying position. And the reason that's important is because we've known from our past experience that if you could help the client achieve a high paying job, the chances of recidivism occurring are reduced dramatically. So Fathers Building Futures is a really great company, has a great mission, and we're looking forward to helping them grow. So now I want to talk a little bit about the idea of focusing on the operations of the business. When I started my career in the for-profit sector, and this kind of conversation was very common: how to make your business stronger, better, more productive, more profitable. But when I moved into the nonprofit space, I noticed this kind of conversation rarely took place. People don't talk this way in the nonprofit sector, but in my opinion, it's equally important. We want our nonprofit entities to be sustainable. We want them to be able to grow. And ultimately what we want is we want our mission impact to be as significant as possible. We want to help as many people that we can. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what we do and why we do it. We work on this area very diligently in our companies, all of them. We focus on what's called the 3 Ps. Like I said, a concept that's common in the for-profit space, maybe not so common a conversation in the nonprofit space. But here in these 3 P areas was where we constantly nurture and try to improve, try to upgrade, look for opportunities in making these 3 segments of our business operations as best as as good as they possibly can be. The people area, the process area, the product area. Product services. I recognize that most nonprofits are service oriented, but just to keep it simple, we call it the 3 Ps. And so why do we do this? Well, ultimately, I give you 3 reasons here why you would focus on people, process, and product. But the bottom line with each one of these things do is they help your business be stronger, better, more sustainable. It helps you generate greater revenue, whether that's from grants or from fee services, or it helps you manage your costs better, whether you're coming up with processes in the sales generation area or program service area or accounting area. So you're controlling your costs better. And lastly, the product or service area, it helps you focus on differentiating your product from your competitors, if you have them, or making your service more compelling to your target customers or your clients, because you have such a strong service offering that they come to you because it's just an enormous opportunity for them. So in one way or another, focusing on these 3 areas of people, process, and product allows your business to be stronger, which then transfers over into the mission side, and it allows the mission to be more impactful. And you've heard this saying before: if you can't run your business well, if you don't gain any money out of it, you're not going to have any mission. So this is along those lines that we focus. And so the first area, let me give you some examples of what we do in our companies, just to delve into this in more detail. So in the people space, what we do in the Atrisco companies is a hiring process is a little more extensive than the average company, but we do this because we want to increase our ability to hire the right people, so that we don't have to do it again. We can retain and not have to redo a hiring process, but also so that we can get the best people to fit in our company and be the most productive for our company. How we do that is we actually have 2 types of interviews. We have a technical interview, and if an individual passes the technical interview, they come back for a second interview called a values interview. And a values interview is more of an interview about the individual's values and ethics. So you're trying to determine whether they're a cultural fit for your organization. Other things that we do, processes that we follow in hiring people, is we always have 2 people in an interview. And if you're interviewing a given role, those same 2 people must interview all candidates for that role. We also have a standard set of questions that we ask, and we have a standard grading sheet that covers a number of categories, and we grade out each candidate. So there's a process that's a little structured, and like I said, it might take a little more time because of the 2-level interviews, but ultimately it allows us to hire better for fit and have a higher level of retaining our employees, because we got the right person in the first place. Second example that I'd like to give you goes into it goes into the people space again, but it's a process of training and development. Every employee in the Atrisco companies, and we have 27 FTEs in our office and about 200 people in the field. We bring them through a training and development course that is about teaching them how to be essentially good leaders and better decision makers. It's about a 12-month course. Every month you meet. We go over topics that include leadership management, heart-led leadership, emotional intelligence, and values, ethics, and decision making. So it's a long period that we have individuals gather every month. They've read an article. We get together for a discussion, and through that process, the upper management, myself included, are the managers of this process, this discussion, and the employees get to have an interaction with us, and we're kind of exchanging our knowledge with them along with the articles that they're reading and we're going over. So it's a kind of it's a program a process that we developed ourselves, and we make sure that every one of our FTEs are done, go through this development training. Sometimes they go through it twice, but it's a way of us investing in the individual and trying to make sure that they become great leaders in our company, and more importantly, give them the autonomy to be decision makers in our company. The next example I'd like to share with you is an example of a product that we have worked on and built within the Rio Grande Educational Collaborative. Now, our GC, I mentioned, is a academic-based before and after school program. So we have literally nearly 200 field educators working in this program. And we noticed years ago that we were gathering such incredible work product from them when they would create the lesson plans for the kids. And so we started to gather the best of these lesson plans, and we started to structure them on a template with ties to Common Core, which we would have certified teachers come in and do for us. And then we had a technology company go out, and we had this wonderful idea. Let's build a database that is a repository of all these lesson plans and allow it to be web access. So anybody in any of our sites throughout the state could have access to what we know are the best of the best lesson plans, those that work real well with the children and actually have a very strong tie to Common Core for New Mexico PED. So this product was one of those examples of compelling, innovative ideas that really separated us from our competition. Matter of fact, when we talk to new principals about bringing our service into their schools, when we tell them about this product, they're actually quite stunned because even the school systems haven't developed something like that. Today, sadly, teachers kind of work in silos and they don't really share information very well. So this is a way for us to collectively gather a lot of great ideas from a lot of great creative people and then put them in one place and share them with everyone else in our organization. So all sounds good. A lot of good technical processes that we add and things that we do to try to enhance our organization, but what's the impact of that? So here's a couple of examples. In El Campo Santo, when we brought it into the organization under our control in 2007, we used to do about 40 burials a year. Today, we do about 100 burials a year, which is quite a bit more. It's a lot more families that we're supporting as a result. The Rio Grande Education Collaborative has had a huge growth in this state. As a matter of fact, today we are the largest after-school provider in the state of New Mexico. We started out back in 2009 with 150 children that we served every day in 6 sites. Today, we serve over 2,000 children every day in almost 60 sites around the state of New Mexico. And then Mariachi Spectacular, it's had spectacular growth, if I could say that. It had pretty good attendance when we first brought them in 2013 with 5,000 people attending the conferences and the concerts. But we've done a number of things to enhance both the conference and the concerts to expand the amount of people that we're reaching. One of those things that really elevated our reach was that we started internet broadcasting one of the concerts around the world. So we have viewers from around this country and Mexico that see Albuquerque every year in this manner, and that attracts new customers to our programs, our conferences each year. Also, we've done a lot to build the following of mariachi within the school systems here in New Mexico. So we've worked with a lot of different public school systems to get mariachi to become a component within their curriculum. The way band is, you have mariachi as well. So these are some of the examples that I wanted to share with you, just to show you what we do by focusing on these three areas, which enhance your business. I would suggest, if I was to give you all a tip here, try to take a few moments in your business each day as the leaders of your nonprofit organization and think, how am I doing in these three areas? Am I doing enough? Can I do better? Is there something else I can do? Spend some time thinking about it and then spend some time acting on it, because it's a process of nurturing. It takes time, but over time, if you continue to focus on it, you will end up improving your business and expanding your reach. And that's ultimately, I think, what all of us want to do within our missions as nonprofit organizers. Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it. You know, we will. I'm sorry, I'm Mike. If folks have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, or we also invite folks to unmute themselves too, if you have any questions for Peter. Well, Peter, I have a question. What were some of your biggest challenges last year as y'all hit the pandemic, and then what are some things you're looking forward to as we're heading out of it?
Well, the pandemic was really hard on our organization because the largest nonprofit entity that we have among our 6 companies is the Rio Grande Educational Collaborative, and it was tied to the school systems. So when they shut the schools down in March of 2020, that shut us down. We had to make some pivots, and we were able to do that, where we became more of a full-day operator for frontline parents, but it was not nearly enough to handle the size of the infrastructure that we were supporting. So it was a tough time. We had a lot of ups and downs during the last 16 months or so, but we managed to survive. There was a lot of help out there, thankfully, and we were able to tap into a lot of it, whether it was grants or governmental support, the PPP program. But I won't say it was easy still, though. It was a tough period. I'm happy to be done with it. We are done with it now, for at least in terms of our organization. School starts in about 2 weeks, and we're ready to go. Last weekend we had Mariachi Spectacular offered virtually, and that was an example of us returning to, because we didn't have anything the year before, but we actually did some clinics last week and 2 concerts last week virtually. So that was a step in the right direction too.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
What were, you mentioned some of that help. What were some really key partnerships that you had last year that you felt really got you out of it, or at least?
Well, I have to give credit to our state. Our state really adjusted its method of supporting nonprofits. We were working with CYFD, ECECD. We were working with New Mexico PED. We were working with the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, and all those governmental entities within our city and state really adjusted some of the grants that they had to allow us to reach those grant dollars, and provided some of the fuel that we needed as we were, stuck in a tough spot. So I'm really proud of our state for really doing what they had to do. They really, in my opinion, they helped the nonprofit organization survive. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's huge. I really appreciate you naming that too.
Yeah,
we all had to make adjustments, and I think the state pulled together very well. So,
yeah, I was very proud of them.
Just going to open up to any questions in the audience. Michael, do you have any questions for Peter or anything like that?
Sure. So you mentioned you did the Mariachi Spectacular on virtually this year. Do you have any tips and tricks from what you learned from doing it virtually? Because I know, like my organization, we did our conference earlier this year, and it was kind of like, let's try to figure out what to do. But the Mariachi Spectacular is, I don't know, something a little bigger than our small little conference. So if you could share some of your tips and tricks and biggest takeaways from that, I would love to hear that.
Well, first thing we did is we aligned ourselves with a production company, and that that helped us because we don't have that kind of expertise. We're not in the virtual mode as well as others can be, but that bringing in the production company allowed us to record and produce. So out of 3 events that we held, 2 of them were actually recorded and produced and then offered on the internet, on the web. So that made the delivery of that event much more clean and professional. That was a nice thing. And then it also, because it was recorded, it reduced the number of technical problems that could occur. The only one that we did was the Saturday Night Spectacular concert. We did that live, but that was and then there were some things that happened in it, by the way, that threw us off. So the going into a live situation was just what I had thought. It was dangerous. Well, for example, we were doing this in Atrisco Heritage Academy. Their air conditioning system didn't go on early enough, and it was really hot in the venue that we were recording in that night. And we had a small audience too, had a private audience. So it's kind of hot. And then the second thing that happened is our ED for this company. She really wanted to highlight the people that were the members of the ensemble that were going to perform, and she talked way too long. And that's not something we would have let happen in a recorded session. We would have contained that, right? If we would have even chopped it down if we had to. So you just, when you go live, it's a little dangerous. There's just things that happen to you, and you're there. You got to go. So record a little more.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just noticed it's 9:27. We're going to ask this last question of you, Peter, and then we're going to shift to Bobby. But
sure.
What is one thing this community can do to support y'all today?
Well, I'm grateful to have this opportunity this morning to talk. Mostly, we like people to know who we are, and we're very open and helpful. We try to be an open and helpful organization. So we're more than willing to talk to people and help them with their nonprofit organization, because we feel that the stronger our nonprofit companies are throughout the state, the better off our state is. And so just giving me the opportunity to talk today, I really appreciate that. That gives us some exposure that we could use. Thank you.
Awesome. Big thanks to Peter for joining us today and sharing a lot of information with Atrisco. And also big thanks to Ariana too for driving the slides today. Thank you, Ariana, for being here today and helping out. We really appreciate your support. I'm going to pass it to Michael just to introduce our next guest, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Peter, for presenting. So next up, we have Bobby Ehrig. He's the CEO of the Veterans Integration Center. So we're very happy to have him here to tell us about the Veterans Integration Center and everything that happens there. So Bobby, thank you so much for joining us, and you can take it away.
Thank you all for having me. First, I'd like to say for any veterans or their family members in the audience, thank you for your service. I know that a lot of times folks do hear that. Some veterans don't like that, but I will tell you from a veteran who has served in multiple conflicts that I am grateful. And I have to also, remind folks that no veteran ever serves alone. So family members are important. Even if you sent a card at one time or a care package or cookies, it is well received, and that's the challenge of always making sure our veterans aren't forgotten. What I'd like to do is get to the slides so I don't take up too much time. You can tell me if you can see them. Okay, can everybody see those? Yes, somebody?
Yes, I can see them. You're good.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so this is our mission statement. I'm not going to really get into it. What I'd like to remind folks is that the VIC likes to try and help in any way we can. Our primary mission is addressing homelessness among the veteran community throughout the state. But because there are a limited number of veteran nonprofits that support the community, we like to say that if there's something that you need that's related to a veteran or a family, give us a call. If we don't do it, we'll try and find a way to do it or find someone that can. And I'm going to go through some of these slides a little fast. I'm not doing it on purpose. I will have the entire slide deck available if anybody would like it as well in more detail. So we were established in 2005. We're actually started our 15th year of service this year, and have made it through COVID, thank God. We currently operate with 25 staff. The important thing is that 90% of those staff are veterans or family members themselves. And I think depending on what business you are in with regards to the nonprofit industry, since most is social service like work, that makes us successful. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit later as far as how that impacts. We serve over 1,100 families each year, veteran and non-veteran, because we believe in giving back to our community. The other thing, the revenue is not really important, except for the fact that I like to remind folks that the VIC, as a very small nonprofit in the footprint of New Mexico, brings in about 1.4 million in federal dollars. And that's important, I think, because, you know, as many times as you hear all the New Mexico ranks worse in this and this and this, you know, we like to show that we're actually bringing revenue into the state that would not normally be here. And the other thing is that we have a 10% overhead cost, under 10%. We're about 9.6. And that's important because that basically means that 90 cents or more of every dollar that's donated to the organization actually goes directly back into those services and programs for our veteran families. And, you know, if you compare that to some of the organizations now, even the national, international ones, I've seen overhead goes as high as 80% of every dollar going to just the organization itself. So our service area, as I mentioned, is the entire state of New Mexico, and I'll kind of break that down a little bit as far as our programs later. But as I said, we can go anywhere in the state. Our staff kind of deploy from our offices in Albuquerque or Alamogordo, so that we don't need somebody to actually come to the VIC to get service. All we need to do is them somebody to call us, and it can be somebody who's actually another provider, family member, or that, and refer someone, and then we will either go to them or get partners to help us provide the services throughout the state. So who do we serve? Okay, a lot of times this is a misunderstanding, and I understand it because, you know, the veteran community is kind of like, let's say if you don't have a disability and you're trying to understand somebody that does, it's really a challenge. So veterans who served on active duty there, those are mostly what most people think of when they hear the word veteran. But in New Mexico, because we have such a diverse veteran community, we've included others to be able to receive services from us. On the right there, you see that we also include National Guard and Reservists. For those of you who don't know, just because you serve as a citizen soldier, or what we call weekend warrior, does not mean you're going to get benefits. If they do not get federal orders on a deployment, you know, outside of the state, most of the time they don't qualify for regular benefits. But we've included them because we have, on average, 5,000 New Mexicans serving any given day in the National Guard and Reserves. The other thing that we also have included on the bottom there is widows. So unremarried widows of veterans who passed, and that's not just a female widow, but generally it is. And that's because we have one of the oldest veteran populations in the U.S. Our average age of who we serve here at the VIC is 55 and older, and that's not by choice. That just happens to be the demographic that's actually reaching out for assistance. We get probably 20 to 30 calls from widows whose veteran has passed and they need help. Sometimes it's just with accessing burial benefits through the VA. Sometimes it's because the spouse who passed was the primary breadwinner and they never worked in that generation. So we try and help out, again, in any way we can, as well as making services that solve gaps in the actual service delivery of our community. So these are our major programs, and I'll hit on them here real quick. So we have what's called a three-tier housing continuum. And by that, I mean there are three layers to being able to help somebody who's homeless. And remember that when I'm talking about homeless, I'm very specifically talking about veterans and their families. If we do get referrals for regular homeless individuals, sometimes we refer them to the major homeless providers throughout the state with the services that are offered there. But we specifically focus on the veterans. Emergency housing is one that most people can understand. Basically, it's a hotel or motel stay. And what this does is it allows us to get somebody immediately off the streets if they're living on the streets or coming from a shelter, or maybe they stayed at somebody's place but got kicked out or no longer welcome there. So we want to make sure that their transition is quick, effective, and long lasting. So we put them in there. This is also where we have applied over the last year and a half with COVID, COVID protection measures like COVID testing and things like that. Shots for those who want it, we get them connected to those. And then it also enables them to kind of prepare themselves, because one of the things that folks don't realize is that when you are homeless or in a homeless state, getting back to normal is the biggest challenge. And trying to do that in a way that's respectful and that does not cause more trauma is how we apply our services at the VIC. So that's where we start. The next step would be the transitional housing. That's for up to 1 year. It is located in Albuquerque. Normally, it focuses on the mental and physical health and well-being so that the veteran and their family can address their struggles that led them to homelessness. And we can actually accommodate families of up to 4 persons in size, which is a big difference than a lot of programs in the community. We will also pick up a veteran and their family anywhere in the state. So I could tell you an example of last year where we picked up a veteran who was identified by a police officer in Silver City. And, there are very limited resources set up down there. They contacted us because they had heard about us. And we actually sent staff down there to pick them up, bring them back here and kind of get them started on their journey. The final thing is what's called rapid rehousing or permanent housing. So normally that's up to 9 months. And this is basically where we take someone and move them into a new apartment in the community. It could be anywhere in the state, not just in Albuquerque. And then what we do is continue to work with them on the long-term housing plan. And by that, I mean making sure that they know how to do all the fundamentals that each of us kind of take for granted, like budgeting, like paying the bills, like planning for life events, making sure that you have your groceries and all those things. If you need medical care, how would you access them? And that's kind of the long-term effect of us making sure that the recidivism rate does not increase among at least the homeless veterans of our community. So again, I'm just going to go through these just for reference. As I mentioned, emergency housing, short-term, you can see that they have, appropriate accommodations for those, and it can be generally any hotel or motel anywhere in the state of New Mexico. The one thing I will mention about this is that for those other people out there providing services, we can actually just pay for the hotel if somebody's already providing service. We don't want someone to just pass the veteran off to the VIC unless that's what they need to do. But we can also pay for the hotel and make it part of somebody's already developing plan in their community. A lot of times this will happen in our rural areas a lot. One example of that is in Raton, where we had a widow. Somebody in the community was helping, but they really didn't have a lot of resources or funds. So they contacted us and we were able to help. Transitional housing, and as I mentioned, it's up to a year. This is kind of what it looks like. Basically, we are embedded within an apartment complex in Albuquerque. We fully furnish them. We provide everything for the veterans that live there. As you can see, everyone kind of lives like a roommate in that transition. In the military, we're already used to this, but we also make sure it's a respectful manner. So as you can see, they also get a living room, TV, and things. And then we also improve the accommodations based on the responses that we get from the veterans. The other thing too is that we're able to also provide ADA accommodations. So if somebody's in a wheelchair, walker, some other disabilities that they just need a little extra attention, we can actually help with that too. Again, permanent housing. A lot of times people associate this with families, but generally it could be any veteran, single, family. We also are non-discriminatory, I always say, because instead of looking at, let's say, social demographics of individuals, we only look at veteran status. So for us, that's important because we want to remind folks that our programs are welcoming, non-biased, non-opinionated, non-affiliated, and all our goal is to do is try and end a homeless cycle for families out there. These are a list of our wraparound services we provide, and these are actually what makes the program successful. We try and address basically everything that is needed in a person's life, things as simple as life skills, which would be like cooking and cleaning again and how to do laundry, to things like counseling services, which I'll show you in a minute, education services. We also have peer support. So if you have, let's say, people are used to having best friends or good neighbors that you talk to, in the military, we have battle buddies, and that is what we call peer support services, because we have found that having somebody to talk to just to vent or share your frustration is actually an integral component of ending homelessness for anyone. So we actually address that as well. We also have a food pantry and nutritional education program. I'm sure everybody can kind of attest that they can name one food pantry somewhere within the state. We were actually asked to establish a food pantry. We are in one of our offices is in the second most impoverished zip code of Albuquerque. So this is where we help veteran and non-veteran families, about 1,100 total a year. What we try and do is provide what's known as a food box, which is about 3 to 5 days worth of food, healthy nutritional items as well. Everything is USDA approved. We follow the Roadrunner Food Bank guidelines when we do this. The other thing that we actually also did during COVID was create the home food delivery program. As you can see with the little old lady veteran over there with her basket. We noticed that a lot of the disabled and homebound families were not coming to the pantry during COVID, even though we were still open and operating in COVID-safe practices. So we wanted to make sure that food insecurity did not continue to increase in our community. And we started a home delivery food program, which now supports currently 22 families that get a food delivery each month. The other thing that we do that's a little different is that we fully furnish every veteran and their family's homes when they move into their permanent housing. Why do we do this? Number one, it's because there is an emotional trauma or toll that affects people as they move in. If you think about the first apartment that you got after, graduating high school, becoming 18, things getting out on your own, there's a lot of expenses incurred in that. So what we wanted to do is make sure that there was nothing, including that trauma of having to worry about furnishing your own apartment, to make sure that our veterans have the best success at long-term housing stability. So each year we do approximately, I believe it's over 200,000 worth of donated items that go redistributed back to the veterans and their families. We also help veterans in the community that might be low income, that might need like a single item. A lot of times we'll get calls throughout the state. For one thing, we had a veteran a couple of months ago from Gallup that asked us, he's like, he would really love a table because he's sitting on his couch eating alone all the time. And that would make him feel normal. So we got a call and we were able to help him with that. But again, what we like to do is make sure that there are zero barriers, if we can do that, to long-term housing stability. It also helps pay for 2 veterans' part-time salaries. We are not a large company, but we try and do our part to make sure that we could support the needs of all veterans in the community. Community support shuttle. So if you have been in Albuquerque and seen the shuttle driving around downtown with the American flag all wrapped around, this is actually provided starting in 2017 as a pilot program by the city of Albuquerque. The intent was to try and help connect the homeless and indigent to the service providers throughout the downtown corridor. What it has become after over 3 years is a focal point for anyone in need coming to our city. And what it does is we have a peer supporting driver on the shuttle. It enables them to interact at the grassroots level with somebody in need, and also encourage them on a regular basis to try and seek out services. So one thing, with any special population is the ability to gain their trust. And as much as you may not think about that, even people on the streets have kind of rules that they follow. A lot of them are the lack of trust of the community. So a lot of times our shuttle enables that. And it also accommodates for ADA and regular riders, which a lot of the transportation services do not. And as you can see on a non-COVID time, that 1,400 to 1,500 riders per month is actually where we kind of sit, in the transport business, I guess you would call it. The last major program we have that we established during COVID is mental health counseling. So we call it Operation War Recovery. We provide basically clinical counseling and peer support on site with our programs and services. We don't do medications or any of that type of stuff. It's just counseling. And we also make sure that it's available 24 hours a day for our peer support and resident monitor staff. Why? Because if you have a crisis, and I'll call it an emotional crisis, it's not necessarily going to happen on a 9-to-5 schedule. And we started noticing that when everything started shutting down, one of the largest things that was in demand was still shut down was the mental health counseling group supports like AA and NA. So we established them in-house. We have a licensed clinician who has 24 years of active military service. And he engages with our community of veterans, but also if we have outside requests, we can accept them, and also do telehealth services with us and everything. Again, I remind everyone that all services are free. So for us, our families are what matter, and basically we count success. We always say as one veteran a day supported. Last year, these are some stats in FY20. As I mentioned, 1,100 needy families in all programs. 253 of them were family members, generally not included in your totals when you look at statistics. We helped over 600 veteran families. Again, the average age was 55 and older, but we do not discriminate. We still have some younger, just generally in New Mexico, they seem to be older. Long-term housing stability. So this is important because in the social service business, this is how we measure whether or not we're successful. So we track individuals, families up to a year after they leave us. And that means that 80% out of the families we served were still housed up to 1 year later. Our national average is 64 to 67. And I point this out not just because of our success, but also, again, to say that there are good things being done in New Mexico. We don't have to always be ranked in the bottom 4 or 5 of those statistics that always come out. We also, again, as I mentioned, we distributed over 200,000 in donated goods. And over 71% of the homeless that we support, veterans, have been in the homeless status for 1 year or more. That's significant because a lot of people don't understand, the plight of homelessness other than the person panhandling at the corner. And we want to just kind of remind them that, there is a long-term effect for a lot of these folks. They've been out there a long time. A lot of them struggle with mental illness and substance use, of course. But there are others just that need that break. And we just like to remind folks of that. So that is all I have. Those are our contacts. I've also put it in the chat. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out. I can also make the slide deck available to you, Michael, if you want me to email that to you to share with others. But as I said, if you need something and the word veteran is in that conversation, give us a call. If we can't do it, we'll try and figure out how we can provide it or how we can find someone to support you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bobby. The Veterans Integration Center sure does a lot more than I realized. So it's amazing that there's this resource that's out there for the veteran community. So we appreciate everything that you guys do. So let's see, I had a question about, so I see that a huge portion of your program is housing. And I know that during the pandemic, housing was always a hot topic and a major issue. What kind of obstacles did you encounter and how did you guys overcome them?
So the one thing for us is that COVID, it was a significant event, but I guess I will say that the way that we provide service to the specific, I guess you would call niche of homeless in the veteran community is that we didn't want the global pandemic to stop what we provide. The services that we provide are significant in that they change lives every day. And as veterans ourselves, we did not want to let the global pandemic affect our services. So what we did was basically implement measures that many of us learned in the military of dealing with crisis, of dealing with catastrophe. And we kept our doors open. We had to kind of reduce or limit how we provided service sometimes, but we were still operating at 100% staffing. We were blessed to get the resources we needed to keep all our staff and maintain our services. We just added all the appropriate COVID-19 protective practices, social distancing, regular testing, hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, things like that. I think our largest challenge was not just keeping the doors open, but also, getting the resources, as Peter mentioned, the funding to ensure that we could stay open. I can tell you a lot of the nonprofits either had to close their doors or had to reduce their operations and staffing. And we were blessed not to have to do that during the pandemic.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it sounds like you even expanded a little by offering the telehealth services and so forth. So that is one of those great things that you do see come out of this is people getting innovative with ways that they can serve the populations they work with. So that's awesome. All right. Are there any other questions from the audience? Feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can also type it in the chat and we'll be able to see them and we can ask those questions for you.
Bobby, I've got a question. This is Peter Sanchez.
Yes, sir.
I like what you do and I like what you said, and then what you do in the off hours. The world doesn't just stop after 5 o'clock. Issues occur still. I would love to get together with you and talk a little bit more about that, because in Fathers Building Futures, we're contending with that issue. We have a 9 to 5 frame that we work with, but then things happen afterwards, and maybe we're not as structured as well for the after 5 business that occurs as you are. And so I'd love to spend a little time with you. Maybe we can chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, we love to kind of share ideas with other organizations, companies, not just in the nonprofit business, even in the for-profit business. There's lots of opportunities, I think, and as you mentioned, for people to work together in New Mexico. Forums like this are important, I think, also because it gets the word out there.
Yeah.
And in a state where, I would say probably 70% of it is highly rural, people are disconnected. I think that's important to kind of share those ideas, even if it's just, a discussion over a cup of coffee.
Right. Agree. Totally agree.
Hey, Bobby, I just want to say how much I appreciate your work, and also just putting out the stat about your housing retention over a period of a year. I know that's an important statistic for a lot of folks. It tells us all that housing is an important solution when it comes to homelessness and homelessness services, especially. I live here in Wells Park. I used to work at Heading Home. I know that housing has been an important solution for us, and I keep on hearing folks say like, "Oh, we need this, we need that." It's like, no. This is the way to go. This is where we see the most success. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your hard work and for all that you do at the VIC. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I do have to mention that we could not do the work that we do and have the success without the community support. A lot of our services that we provide, much like the furniture and donation things, are not funded. Government does not fund every need for a person, to regain control of their life. And we just have to thank the community, because we appreciate community support in any capacity.
Hi, Mr. Ehrig. I have a question about your shuttle bus, which
yes, ma'am.
be an amazing service that offers, equal opportunity services. As it's a possible gateway for veterans to come and avail themselves of your services, do you have a counselor or somebody on board beside the driver who can talk with the people who can help with the outreach process?
Yeah, so we actually have a peer support specialist that also rides the shuttle. And what we do is they may identify folks. Let's say folks need something more than, let's say, a 10-minute conversation. They will actually call back to us at the VIC up here, and they will connect with the case manager who, whether they have to do it over the phone or whether they have to go downtown and meet somebody, can actually go down there and facilitate a longer conversation. But they also do connect riders with resources. So they are not just a VIC shuttle. They are a community shuttle who has resource and information on all programs in the community. And they also have a cell phone that, if a homeless person needs to make a call, they can make the call. So we try and make sure that we can provide a static service, I guess you would say, but also a continuation of services or connection to those in the entire process.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Let's see. All right. So, Bobby, where do you see the Veterans Integration Center going in this next year? Any kind of new programs or any milestones that you guys hope to achieve?
Yeah, so we're halfway into 2021. Things are starting to get back to normal, which we're also doing the same. So one of the things is one of our major outreach events, which is called the Albuquerque Homeless Standout. It's a one-day focused event that provides over 40 service providers and resources to veterans and their families in need in the community. Before COVID, it used to help about 200 veterans and their families each year. And why we targeted on that one day is that a lot of times folks may not get information on resources, as fast as they need it. Well, we make sure that this opportunity is there to help promote not just us, but also the service agency, as well as making sure, homelessness is still a choice. If somebody does not want to go into housing or things, we don't want to kind of force them. We also provide services to keep people safe on the streets and things like that. And then it's also an opportunity for us to make sure that anything that they tell us, maybe there's something new that's coming up, that there's a need, we can identify that. The other thing we're trying to do, as I mentioned, is the mental health counseling. We're trying to expand our telehealth service opportunity, because we don't want veterans and their families, let's say in Farmington, Gallup, Alamogordo, Raton, to think that they have to come to Albuquerque to get help. Our staff are trained. They can do it over the phone if they have to. It's not the most appropriate or best option for everyone, but that we want to make sure that that is available for anyone if they do have barriers to getting to services.
So you mentioned the event that you guys have, the homelessness event, and when is that going to be taking place?
So the Albuquerque Homeless Stand Down is going to be on October 21st of this year at the Rock at noonday. And again, it focuses on veterans and their family members. So if a family member comes trying to get some information, they're also welcome to do that. We also take volunteers, which you'll see in the next couple of weeks on our website, nnvic.org. Registration going up. We use about 125 to 150 volunteers for the event itself. And as I mentioned, we couldn't do it without the support. We even have the National Guard out there. Some active duty forces come out and help volunteer on that day as well. But it is an actual immersive community event where everyone gets together to try and support our nation's heroes.
That sounds like an amazing event. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Are there any other questions from the audience members? Cool. Doesn't look like it. So I guess we can wrap it up by asking you the question that we always end with. And that's, what can this community do for you today?
I think what I'd like to mention is just don't forget about our veterans and their families. As the VIC, we always appreciate if you have donations. We take almost anything. You can check our website out for the list. But just remember that veterans are among the community everywhere we are. Could be a neighbor. You might see a flag, but they never say anything. A lot of veterans don't kind of advertise that they are veterans, and thanking them or shaking their hand or just acknowledging that they serve is an important component of our communities, of our society. You can disagree with war, conflict, and politics, but remember that veterans, they don't do it for any of those reasons. They only do it to help serve and to make a better America for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I guess it's 9:57, so we can go ahead and wrap things up today. So both Peter and Bobby, thank you so much for joining us today. I think that the audience really appreciated everything that you had to say, and we definitely learned a lot about both of your organizations. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And for the people in the audience, their contact information is in the chat, so feel free to look at that and write it down so that way you can follow up with them if you have any additional questions. And let's see, Robert, do you have anything else to add?
Next Impact and Coffee is August 3rd at 9 a.m. So come tune in. We'll let everyone know through email and through Facebook when the next Impact and Coffee is. Peter and Bobby, you're always welcome to join us again and meet some new folks. And to all of our audience members, thank you so much for joining us and staying with us throughout the Zoom time. So hopefully, I know I echoed this in the beginning, but hopefully we'll be able to go back in person and do the coffee part of Impact and Coffee, which I miss very, very much. So and invite Nicole back into our fold as well. So if you ever get a chance, check out Lily Marie's Coffee. She was our coffee sponsor for over 5 years. She's in the South Valley. Her coffee is amazing. Go check her out. But until then, we'll see you on August 3rd, which is a Tuesday morning. Michael, is there anything you want to add before we go?
I think we're good. Again, thank you to the speakers and thank you to the audience for joining us today. And hopefully we'll see you all on August 3rd.
Absolutely. Have a really great day, you all, and may all your lights be green. We'll see you soon.